Thomas the Tank Engine loves puffing through the countryside on his branch line with his faithful coaches, Annie and Clarabel. Everyone on the island of Sodo knows that wherever Thomas goes, Annie and Clarabel goes too. One bright day, Thomas, Annie and Clarabel were waiting at Elsborough Station when they heard a whistle. It was Gemma and her own coaches, Sally and Sarah. Sally and Sarah are slip coaches. They can be uncoupled without even stopping, so Gemma can run on time without any delays. Thomas watched as Gemma puffed towards the station. Then she released Sally, and Sally rode to a stop on the platform. Thomas was so impressed. He liked Gemma and her slip coaches. But Annie and Clarabel were surprised, because they had never heard about slip coaches before. "Excuse us," they called to Sally. "How did you do that?" "Do what?" asked Sally. "Uncouple yourself," said Annie. Before Sally could reply, her passengers got out and climbed into Annie and Clarabel, and the guard blew his whistle. "Goodbye, Sally," whistled Thomas cheerfully. "Really useful engines are really busy ones." And he puffed away. Thomas puffed cheerfully along his branch line, but Annie and Clarabel weren't cheerful at all. "How did that coach uncouple herself?" Annie whispered. "I just don't know," Clarabel replied. That night, Thomas could see his coaches were in deep thought. "You two have been very quiet today," he said. "Is everything all right?" Before Annie and Clarabel could reply, the station master came up. "Thomas, the quarry has a special order of rocks and stones to deliver to Kelden," he told him. "You will take the workmen to work, and then you'll collect the stone trucks and take them to Elsborough Junction while doing your passenger runs." "Yes, sir," puffed Thomas. The next morning, Thomas collected the workmen and steamed up to the quarry. They dropped off the workmen, and Thomas went to collect the order. Annie and Clarabel were still thinking about Gemma's slip coaches. "How can coaches uncouple themselves?" thought Annie. "I wish we can try that," said Clarabel. The Troublesome Trucks have heard everything, and it gave them a naughty idea. Thomas shunted the trucks of stones in front of Annie and set off back down to Farquhar to pick up his passengers. Thomas puffed through the countryside, but the trucks were waiting to carry out their plan. As Thomas approached Mainway Station, the Troublesome Trucks jerked the coupling between them and the coaches broke. "Farewell, slippy coaches!" they cried. Annie and Clarabel were taken by surprise. They were rolling on their own, until they rolled to a gentle stop at the platform. "Thomas! Thomas! Come back!" they shouted, but Thomas was too far away to hear. Thomas arrived at Dryall Station. Harold the helicopter was there being refueled. "Hello, Thomas. How are you this morning?" "Never felt better, Harold," chuckled Thomas. But suddenly, the porter came up to Thomas. "You arrived on time, Thomas," he said. "But where are your coaches?" Thomas looked back. Annie and Clarabel were nowhere to be seen. "Cinders and ashes!" he exclaimed. "Where have they gone?" "The coupling must have came loose," replied his driver. Thomas was worried. "I must go back and find them." At Midway Station, Annie and Clarabel can hear the passengers telling the station master and the guard what a bad railway it was. Then, when Thomas arrived back, his driver apologized to the passengers. "We'll get you all to Elsbridge somehow," he said. So the passengers forgot to be cross, got back into Annie and Clarabel, and the fireman refastened the coupling, and Thomas set off again. Thomas didn't stop until he arrived at Elsbridge just in time. "Hello, Thomas," tooted Donald. "You made it on time." "Only just," panted Thomas. When Donald had left with the stone trucks, Thomas spoke to his coaches. "How did you two came uncoupled?" he asked. "The trucks must have heard us talking about that slip coach," said Annie and Clarabel, and they explained everything to Thomas. Thomas was surprised. "Is that what's bothering you?" "Yes," replied the coaches. Then Thomas had an idea. That night, he took them to see Gemma and her slip coaches. So Sally and Sarah told them how did they uncouple themselves. "So you were drawn for it?" Annie and Clarabel smiled. "Yes, we did," replied Sally. "For the Great Western Railway," added Sarah. And before long the coaches chatted like old friends. Thomas and Gemma smiled. "You know, Thomas," said Gemma, "you are very lucky to have these special branch line coaches." "You know, Gemma," Thomas beamed, "I don't know whatever I'd do without my faithful coaches."